afternoon.
Good afternoon.
How are you today?
I'm doing well.
Good. So my name is Jazmeen. I'm an intern with the Living Archives Project in Charlotte, where we are collecting stories on how various communities were impacted by COVID-19 in Charlotte, Mecklenburg County. Today is November 27th, 2023, and I'm here with Lisa. Please introduce yourself.
Greetings, Jazmeen. It's so good to see you. My name is Lisa McBroom Johnson, and I actually am a resident here in Charlotte, North Carolina.
Awesome. For how long?
I've been here for about 3 years now.
Okay. So really quickly, would you be so kind to describe yourself in any way you feel?
Well, I would say that I'm about 5'6.5", 5'7", African-American woman. I'm aged 55 years old, and I think that pretty much summarizes a little bit about who I am and how the best way to describe me.
Awesome. So you said you've been living in Charlotte for about 3 years now. How has that been? Have you lived anywhere else?
I have. It's been an adjustment because I'm originally from Burlington, North Carolina, which is about an hour and a half away. So it's been an adjustment because Burlington is not this size, but I'm just starting to get more acclimated to the area since I've been here. So I don't get lost as much as I used to.
Okay. Do you enjoy Charlotte though?
I do. It's growing on me because there's so many more things to do. So when my family visits, we have more places to go to rather than just the movies or out to eat. So I can enjoy that part of it.
Awesome. I'd love to hear that. So we did a hand map activity before we started. And would you be so kind to pick something that you would like to talk about today? To kind of talk about your history or anything that's prevalent to the pandemic that happened.
Okay. I think something that was mentioned in regards to maybe some of the things that came about the pandemic were some takeaways from that. I know a couple of things that I made mention of were the challenges, because it was a challenging period. It was something that had never been experienced before, but also learning how to become more resourceful in that because a lot of things were shut down. The access to things were not available during that time. So just having to learn different ways and being resourceful.
Yeah. Would you expand on some of the challenges that you personally had during the pandemic?
Right. The challenges for me were I was still having to work as an essential worker during that time. So how to navigate in still being able to meet with clients at a time that we weren't supposed to be interacting with others outside of our own home. And for me, that was a challenge because of having to figure out how to go about doing that, where there were some families who didn't want to wear masks and we were required to wear masks. And for me, the unknown of not knowing exactly what COVID was to bring and the symptoms and just different things. There were so many questions about that, not really knowing how to navigate through that. So it was important to also educate ourselves more about COVID to be able to relay that to our clients.
Would you tell me where you work?
At that time, I was working at Alamance Partnership in Burlington during that time. And as I said, we were essential workers because I worked as an intensive family preservation specialist where we actually are required to visit with families in home, at-risk families at that. So that was something that we had to stay on top of because we're required to have at least 40 hours with them over a 28-day period. So it was important for us to be able to get that time in with them. So what that looked like, it entailed a lot of visits outside because with the conformity of their homes was just too close. The proximity was too close. We weren't able to be the 6 foot within that 6 foot distance. So a lot of those visits actually were outside.
Right. How did you navigate that through a pandemic?
A lot of prayer, but I have to say I was thankful that most of my clients and families were understanding and realizing that this is how that had to look. Most of them were in agreement of wearing masks, but if they weren't, they were also in agreement of respecting the boundaries, right, of that and the 6 foot distancing. So although challenging, it did help that the communication was there and understanding what the requirements and expectations were from them as well as from me as their worker.
Mm. Wow, that's very interesting to work like that during the pandemic, especially dealing with clients and you don't know what's going on or how the disease is going.
Exactly.
Or virus, I should say.
Right, right.
Okay, so how was your personal life impacted by that time? Having to go out and eat all those things.
The challenge for me with that was in regards to having an older parent and the exposure of meeting with clients, but then also wanting to spend time with her as well. There was also the issue of staying on top of with the vaccines as the vaccines became available. And at that time, and trying to see where we fell on the list. And fortunately for us, because my mother was elderly and because I was an essential worker, we both, because I was an advocate of the shots, of the vaccine. So we were able to, in going through that, I think it helped with that feeling more comfortable in being around her, because I just felt like that was something that we needed to do. But then also there was that anxiety too of having to work and then still being in her presence, and also having adult children, millennials at that, who I felt sometimes were maybe a little bit more lax with that, and having to emphasize to them the importance of masking and social distancing and washing hands for themselves, as well as when they were around their grandmother.
So navigating having an older mom during the pandemic, living with millennials, how on earth did you do it?
Again, a lot of prayer, a woman of faith. So for her, it was also educating her the importance and making sure that she was aware as to what was available to her during that time, because also her not fully understanding, I think, even the seriousness of that either, and really being able to understand that, even when it came down to grocery shopping. I would, because there were certain days that our older individuals were able to go to Walmart. It was during a certain time on a certain day. So I would often, to avoid her having to experience that, I would go for her. And I could recall going one time for her doing that. And then later on that evening, she went out and got something herself. And I'm like, no, that defeats the purpose in having to do this. But I just don't think she fully understood the magnitude of it when it first started. But in time, continuously communicating with her about the severity of that, she started taking even more precautions herself.
So where did you guys get your information of even to share with her what was going on? Like, how did you present that to her? Because it was we didn't know what was going on, even in the news. So how did you explain it to her to kind of finally get the importance?
Right. I think primarily thankfully, I had a lot of friends who were in the healthcare field, nurse practitioners, doctors, nurses, to touch base, get information from them, as well as staying in contact with or on top of the news and what was being said there, and then just kind of having to make those own judgments ourselves. And it was kind of just trial and error with that. Because there were so many, even close friends, that went through the same challenge, the same that we were going through, the same things, the safety precautions and measures in place, but then would still end up with the virus. So you're still wondering, okay, I've taken the shot, I'm washing my hands, I'm keeping distance, I'm staying within a certain amount of people, but then yet and still, we're still getting sick. So there were so many questions, even having the little knowledge that we did, still sickness was still taking place and more around us. So, yeah.
How was Burlington, how was that government like during the pandemic? Like, did you have a lot of restrictions? Did you have curfews? Like, how was that city like?
I have to say, during that time, the mayor was very in tune, was very on top, and his guidance was through the FDC and what he was hearing as far as the different phases that were taking place. even though he followed that, of course, there were still some who just didn't feel as though that was necessary. So it was a lot of divide, I have to say, within some who were willing to wear the mask, some who were willing to take the shot. But then on the other side of that, you had those who were not, and they were going against the grain with everything that was being said. Mm-hmm. So again, it became a personal thing. So even though we had the governing body there that was trying to follow the necessary measures in order to keep the city safe, you still had some of those that were just going to do whatever they wanted to do in spite of that. So.
Right. Well, that's good to know. Well, at least you were in a city where, they cared and they were trying to make sure everyone was good.
Right.
So is there anything else you would like to share on your hand map?
I think some of these things that I'm looking at, because there were certain things taking place when I think about maybe even some of the positives was, like I said, the resourcefulness. Mm-hmm. I was able to even navigate, because my biggest thing was faith, as you've heard me say a few times, as far as praying and wondering what that would look like. And I didn't realize how important it was to be around people. Yeah. So church, because I'm heavily involved and active in my church. So not being able to actually go to church was hard. So to see the churches even stepping up, some of them more so than others, but it also forced them to go into a position to where, how do we reach our audience? How do we reach our congregation? Yeah. How do we reach our members? So I was grateful that I attended a church that had individuals who stepped in to ensure that happened for us. So that helped in being able to navigate through that. So once we were able to master that, or they were able to master that for us, then it opened up being able to bring into our praise team. And I happened to serve on the praise team during that time. So I had a chance to have a little bit of normalcy to be able to go, even though it wasn't the full praise team or the full choir. There was an opportunity to be in that space. Right. So that brought about a sense of normalcy during that time. Even though it looked different and it felt different, there was also still that sense of peace and being able to worship in and outside of the home. So that was something that was a blessing to me. When I think of some of the positives, as I said, the resourcefulness, I learned how to DoorDash during that time. I learned about TikTok during that time. And that was also something that embarrassed my boys, but it was a sense of entertainment for that. You're there. There's very limited things that you can do, because even though I was an essential worker for the first couple of weeks, we had to be at home. We were all mandated to be at home, regardless if you were essential or not at that point. Yeah. So for that time frame, I had a time, and as you said, with the curfews that you made mention of, so I did as a form of entertainment, because my boys are grown and gone. It was just me, myself, and I. So I had to come up with something. So I utilized TikTok. I utilized DoorDash. I took part in things as far as utilizing, I think I said, with the grocery store and even being able to order online. So I was able to become a little bit more hip and comfortable in using that as well. So that helped. And then also during the pandemic, I was planning a wedding. Wow. So that in itself was... Right. It's like, why would anybody plan a wedding during a pandemic? And so we made the best of it with that as well. And not only were we planning a wedding, but that was also a time when I was getting ready to move from what was comfortable to me to a new city. So we were doing the time of our wedding. We were still in the different phases. So at that time, the wedding had to be, if we were going to follow through with this, it had to be outdoors with no more than 25 people. Wow. Yes. So challenging, yes, because you think about our wedding party was small, but then you think about your immediate family and the officiant and the musicians. How is that going to look? Yeah. So having to be very creative with that, but we worked. My attire was through online. It was an online attire that I got, a pantsuit that I was able to order and just really putting it together. But then also our wedding was virtual. So that way it allowed for our family and friends across to be able to see that. And that was special because that will be something that we will always have because it's on YouTube. So it's something that we will always have. And so it was a special time, although challenging. The weather was nice for us. It worked. And it just seemed as though everything came together for us to make that a memorable time for us.
That is so beautiful.
Yes.
Yes.
So,
I'm happy you guys fought through it.
Thank
You
you.
just do it.
Yes, thank you.
What made you decide to get married during the pandemic? Why didn't you just wait
I
like everyone
know,
else?
because we didn't know how long that was going to be. At that time, we really didn't. And so we were older, we're more seasoned. So we've been dating 3 years. It's like, okay, if we're going to do this, we'll just go and do this. And then, as I said, I was transitioning from one job into another. So it just seemed like the time to do it. And that was, as I said, 3 years ago when I moved to Charlotte. So
I love that.
Yeah.
I love that story.
Yes.
It's something that you could just share with anybody.
Exactly.
So very
Exactly.
wow factor.
Yeah. Yeah.
In what ways do you feel like you have, so during the pandemic and now, so which way, like what ways do you feel like you have grown, or maybe you feel like you've gained or lost, or something that is happening now that you feel like the pandemic impacted? What are some of those things, or what is a thing maybe?
I think the main thing that I took away is not taking things in life for granted. We get so accustomed to things being a certain way, the convenience of things. But then when all of that is taken away and everything is shut down, what do? And that's where we were. It helped us to put, for me personally, and as I've had conversations with numerous of family members, close girlfriends, it really put things into perspective. It allowed us to look through things through a different lens. That 2020 vision, being able to see things for what they really are and really honing in, not only on what was going on around us, but even that self-growth, having to look from within and grow from within because you're with yourself. So I think for me, it helped me to learn more about myself during that time, which has led me to where I am now because of that growth and because of that experience, to never take things in life for granted and enjoy the moment.
That's beautiful. That's really beautiful. So is there anything else you would like to share?
Let's see. I think I touched on quite a bit because when I think about just those things, when I describe myself, the loyalty, the trustworthiness, loving, passionate nurturer, it was during those times that I was able to see even more of that, more of these things displayed in myself. And that's what I was saying, that self-growth, because as you're going and hectic and you're ripping and you're running and you're doing this and you're doing that, because life can do that. And I think this was also another one of those times where it was just to slow down. So many times we would often say, I just wish I had more time off, or I wish I had more vacation, or I wish these days that I take off were longer. We were actually put in a position where we had that. And just like, okay, now you're here. What are you going to go do with it? And I think about children, myself included, when I was there, where you never wanted Christmas to end. You wanted it to be 24/7.
Yes.
Well, this was our Christmas because we had that time at home or with your families. And that looked very different with so many different people as far as what their confinement looked like. But it still allowed us time to enjoy the moment. But what we found from that is that some of those individuals who weren't confined by themselves, the people that were there got on their nerves, but we also realized too the importance of mental health. That was a big piece. And so kind of going back on some of the things you asked as far as takeaways, that was another big piece because we also saw how the pandemic impacted individuals' mental health. And I think it also brought a lot of us are brought to the table the importance of talking about mental health and that it is real and it is something to not take lightly and that your mental health is just as important, if not more important than our physical health. So that to me is also something which has led me to this journey that I'm on now in pursuing my second master's in social work. in realizing the importance of that and wanting to tap in more with individuals and educate more individuals to feel more comfortable in recognizing that mental health is a thing and it's okay to not be okay.
Yes.
Getting to that point.
That is so beautiful.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, Lisa.
You're welcome.
So before we go, I would like you to share some encouragement for anyone who may be viewing this in the future and going through their own pandemic or what have you. What is something that you would say to that person or those people to help them get through a hard time like COVID-19 pandemic?
Right. There's a song called This and That. And that's something that I often find myself that if we could get through that, we can get through this. That we're not alone. And that sometimes you have to pull deep within to realize that when it seems like everything is shutting down around you, utilize that time, utilize that space to grow and to learn and to take care of you. And I think it was during that point in realizing and understanding the importance of self-care, understanding the importance to check in on others because life is short, but just not allowing yourself to stay in a space of stagnancy, but just knowing that you can grow in any space that you're in and utilize the space that you're in to continue to grow, that it's not going to last always. It's just temporary. It's just a stepping stone that you're having to go through towards growth and never stop growing. That if you got through that, you will get through this.
Awesome. Is there any last things you want to share before we go?
No, I'm grateful for this opportunity because that was something that we had never experienced before. So having this platform for others to go back and look and see that we did that. Was it challenging? Yes. Did we overcome it? Oh, yeah, we did. And we're still here to be able to talk about it in the future, should it come about again. And hopefully we're more educated. And we've been pushed to put other things in place. Should that occur again, to be able to be there for each other and realizing that we're all in this together. And I think that was another thing from the pandemic, that it's not just about you, it's about all of us.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for sharing
You're
your story
welcome
with us,
so
Lisa.
much. You're welcome. It's my pleasure.